Good morning. We're going to start this morning by talking about a free online game after police and a coroner have warned about the risks of it to children. It's called Doki-Doki Literature Club, and it starts like a dating game set in a high school and features a group of animated girls in a book club. Things do turn sinister, with characters self-harming and killing themselves. It's said to be suitable for players aged 13 or over. It was launched last year and was downloaded 2 million times in the first 4 months. An inquest will be held into the death of a 15-year-old called Ben Wormsley from Bury, whose father said the game dragged his son in. And a pre-inquest review is due to take place at 10 o'clock this morning in that case. Greater Manchester Police have said, "We believe this game is a risk to children and young people, especially those that are emotionally vulnerable and anyone with existing mental health concerns." The coroner has warned this is a psychological horror game with suicide as a main feature, and notes too, it does warn it's not suitable for children. However, the graphics, etc., are clearly aimed at young people. We've contacted the game's creators, Team Salvato, but so far we haven't heard back. Here's the trailer for the game with that warning right at the start. Let's talk about this now with the news editor for the video game website Kotaku UK, Laura Dale. Also mum of two and casual gamer, Helen Grounds. She has played Doki-Doki and is a fan. And Lorna Fraser is here from the suicide prevention charity Samaritans. Welcome all of you. Thank you very much for coming on the programme. Laura, describe the premise.
So the basic premise of the game is that it starts off like a dating sim, as you'd said, that you go to this literature club, try and make friends with all these different girls, and it sort of subverts the expectations of that genre by becoming a horror narrative. A little bit of spoilers for the game. One of the characters, as it turns out, is not happy that you're dating the other video game characters, and she manipulates events so that other characters will commit suicide and will sort of drive you towards dating her instead.
And what's your reaction to this warning from the coroner and Greater Manchester Police about the risks to children and those who are vulnerable?
I think that, honestly, it's the same as the risks of any piece of media that deals with these kind of themes, be it video games or movies or books. If you have someone who is already in an emotionally vulnerable state and you have them engaging with media that tackles these difficult themes and they don't have an outlet to talk about that properly, that can be a problem. I think that a lot of it does just come down to communication and making sure that if you've got a child who is already struggling with those themes, that you're aware of what kind of media they're engaging with.
Helen, you've got two children, younger children. This game is said to be suitable for 13 and up, and that's because it asks you to tick if you are 13 and up, which of course any age could do. And despite the warning, do you think it is deliberately designed to look attractive to kids?
Well, firstly, it is a dating game. These aren't kids' games. Some people kind of get the idea that this kind of anime style is kiddie because it looks cartoony, but in Japan, anime can be for anyone, and it is over in the US and in the UK. And this type of game isn't a type of game for children. I would probably not say 13.
Even that's too young?
I would say it's quite questionable, considering the sort of things that is it. But it does, playing the game, when you actually start it up, there is a ginormous text that says the game is not suitable for children. If you are easily disturbed, you should not play this. It really does try and tell you, don't play this if you're under a certain age, or if you are easily disturbed. And as someone who's also does suffer from mental health problems, you know, I was thinking, ooh, should I actually play this? But I did. And it didn't affect me. If anything, some of the things that did come up kind of helped me realise that if a person sort of acts a certain way, that maybe they really do need help.
Right. And how do you react to this warning from the coroner and from Greater Manchester Police? And this is what GMP say: we believe the game is a risk to children and young people, especially those that are emotionally vulnerable and anyone with existing mental health concerns. I would ask parents to check the sites their children are using on a regular basis, as websites like this aren't flagged up by normal firewall settings.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Parents really need to know what their child is doing on the online. I mean, I won't let my child go on my laptop on his own. He's only allowed to access certain things, and I sit with him.
And how old is he?
My oldest is 8 years old. He's only allowed to play a maths game called Hit the Button, which is used in quite a lot of schools anyway. The only other time he can access the internet is actually in school, which again, there's always a teacher there watching over the children when they're doing their IT. And I will sit with him. If he wants to do some homework, we'll go on Wikipedia together and we research things together. We read it together.
You've said that, you've said that you think 13 is potentially too young. What would be a suitable age?
Considering the things, I mean, it's a difficult thing, because the issue is free games like Doki-Doki and Five Nights at Freddy's, they don't come under any kind of age rating like video games that you buy in a game shop. So you can easily download them for free and they don't have to go through the whole stringency of going for a certain rating like we have in the UK. To be honest, I would say 18, considering there is quite some graphical parts in it. It is quite upsetting.
Well, I mean, let's be clear. When you play the game, do you see characters kill themselves? Sometimes in quite graphic situations.
One of them especially, yes.
Right. Lorna Fraser from Samaritans, how do you respond to that?
Well, what we believe is that this is an example of where it's really important for parents to be aware of the things that they do online. Just as you would want to protect your child in the offline environment, if your kids are going out, you'd like to know where they're going, who they're hanging out with, how they're getting home, this kind of thing. We would encourage parents to have these conversations with your kids, be aware of what they do online. You know, it could give you a false sense of security because they're tucked away in their bedroom or on their tablet or computer, you know, playing something, but they're safe at home. But just be aware that there are dangers. But it's also important to avoid any confusion around focusing on one particular game, because there will be others. So we don't want to give the message to parents, firstly, to really alarm parents, because there are lots of good things online too, but not to give the message to parents that if your child isn't playing this particular game, then there's no cause for concern. Yeah. You know, there are others.
Laura, you're nodding your head in agreement.
Definitely. There are certain parts of what have been said about this particular game that do lead me to suspect that it may not have been the only game involved in this particular tragic event. Without knowing specifically...
We'll have to wait for the inquest, so we can't
have to
speculate.
Obviously wait for the inquest, but there were statements made about this game by the father that are not things that are featured in this game, which would suggest that perhaps there were other games being engaged with that aren't the focus of this inquest. So obviously, this is one game perhaps to look at and say, should your child be playing this? But also be aware of what else they're playing, because there might be other potential risk factors available.
The game itself warns that it's not suitable for children. Helen, as a mum of two, one being 8, says, actually, I think 13 is too young. I mean, if you see, in quite graphic situations, a character kill themselves, would you agree 18 would seem more appropriate?
The games like this, as Helen mentioned, aren't rated by any of the ratings boards in the UK. Most of the UK ratings boards would likely rate this at least a 15 or an 18 because it contains scenes of graphic violence relating to suicide.
Sorry to interrupt,
Yes.
but so my question is, as a parent, if you're across all the stuff that your kid's playing on tablets and laptops and phones, you might see the beginning of this, which says this game is not suitable for children. If that was me, I'd think, OK, so my teenager, my 14, 15 in a year's time teenager, is all right playing this. And actually, if you played the game yourself as an adult, you might get to the end and think, this is not suitable for a 14, 15, 16-year-old.
I certainly think that there are people who would see that warning that says, you know, you should be over 13 and would say, oh,
it doesn't, there is not a warning that says you should be over 13, is there? Let's be clear. It says is this game is not suitable for children, and you're supposed to tick the box if you are over 13.
Yes, well, my point being, if there is a tick box that says, are you over 13, I can understand why parents would go, my child is 14, 15, 16, is probably fine with it. And I think there is definitely a concern to be made for, like, parents not paying attention to what their children are engaging with just because there's an age box that was ticked first.
But I'm being realistic as a parent.
Yeah.
You know, I might see it says 13, tick that box. I'd see the warning at the beginning, and then I would think, OK, it's fine for my teenager.
I'm not saying that as a criticism of parents.
Yeah.
Like, I understand where that difficulty is for parents. Yeah, I understand that difficulty.
Lorna, the NSPCC tell us the game creators itself warn that it's not suitable for children and those that are easily disturbed. Parents should be aware that the game contains highly sensitive and adult themes such as suicide. It's important for parents to have regular conversations with children about their online lives that are as normal as asking about their day at school. What would your advice be to parents who are watching now who might be concerned about this?
To do exactly that. Get to know what your kids are doing online. You know, make this part of everyday conversations so that it's not, it doesn't feel like you're prying into their private lives or doing anything like this. And also making mental health, emotional health part of everyday conversations. You know, these are things that families need to be talking about because it helps to keep people safe.
OK. Thank you, all of you. Thank you very much, Helen. Thank you, Lorna. Thank you, Laura. Thank you very much. A couple of messages here. Izzy on email says, Doki-Doki Literature Club is a horror game with a cute appearance. And it does tell you that. When you start the game, it says this game is not for children or those who are easily disturbed. And you can go to a web page that lists all the unpleasant content. It is up to parents to regulate and investigate the games their children play and ensure healthy communication in case their child develops mental health problems. And this text from somebody who doesn't leave their name. I've been playing violent games like GTA from the first one when I was 6 years old and GoldenEye on the N64, and I continue to do so 20 plus years later. I'm a successful individual with no criminal records and no tendency to kill, rape or steal. Everyone is individual and every individual is different, but to blame the game explicitly is silly. The parents should have more of a grasp of what children are feeling like and offer support. Thank you for those. Do keep them coming in. If you would like to contact someone about any mental health issues, you can find details of organisations offering information and support at bbc.co.uk/action line, or you can call for free at any time to hear recorded information on 08000 155 99.